Most men think compliments are simple. You see a beautiful woman, you say you're pretty, you're hot, and you expect her to feel something. But here's the truth: those compliments don't make her fall for you. They make you sound like every other man she's already ignoring, because attraction doesn't come from what you say, it comes from how deeply you understand her. And in this video, I'm going to show you 8 powerful compliments that don't just impress a woman. They make her feel seen, understood, and emotionally drawn to you. Compliments only become powerful when they feel rare, specific, and emotionally intelligent, because what creates attraction is not the compliment itself, but the experience it gives her. Most people hand out compliments in a predictable, almost automatic way, saying things like, "You look nice," or "You're beautiful," without realizing that these words have lost their impact through overuse. When something is common, it no longer feels valuable. And when a compliment feels like something she has heard 100 times before, it doesn't make her feel special. It makes her feel replaceable. Rarity changes that dynamic completely. When your compliment feels like something she doesn't hear often, it immediately captures her attention because it signals that you are not just reacting to her appearance, you are actually observing her. That sense of being observed rather than simply noticed creates a subtle emotional shift where she becomes more aware of your presence and more curious about how you see her. Specificity deepens that impact even further because a vague compliment requires no effort, but a specific one suggests intention and awareness. When you highlight something precise, whether it is the way she expresses her thoughts, the calmness in her behavior, or the subtle confidence in how she carries herself, it shows that you are paying attention to details that most people overlook. This level of attention makes her feel understood on a more personal level, which is far more meaningful than surface level praise. Instead of feeling like just another person receiving a generic line, she starts to feel like an individual who has been carefully noticed. That feeling of individuality is what strengthens emotional attraction because people are naturally drawn to those who make them feel distinct and recognized beyond the obvious. Emotional intelligence is what ties everything together and turns a simple compliment into something memorable. It is not just about what you say, but about understanding what matters to her on a deeper level and reflecting that back in a subtle and thoughtful way. An emotionally intelligent compliment connects with how she sees herself, or sometimes even reveals something about her that she has not fully recognized yet. This creates a sense of depth in the interaction, where the compliment feels less like flattery and more like insight. When someone feels that you understand aspects of their personality, emotions, or inner world, it builds a quiet sense of trust and connection because it suggests that you are capable of seeing beyond appearances. The combination of rarity, specificity, and emotional intelligence transforms compliments from empty words into meaningful moments. It shifts the focus from trying to impress her to making her feel something genuine, something that stays with her even after the conversation ends. Instead of triggering a polite thank you, it creates a lingering thought, a subtle curiosity, and a sense of intrigue about you. This is where attraction begins to grow naturally. Not because you are trying to convince her of anything, but because the way you communicate makes her feel seen in a way that most people never do. Most men rely on generic praise because it feels easy and safe, but that's exactly why it fails to create any real impact. When you say things like, "You're beautiful," "You're amazing," or "You're perfect," you're not actually telling her anything meaningful about how you see her. You're just repeating phrases that could apply to almost anyone. These kinds of compliments don't require observation, they don't show effort, and most importantly, they don't make her feel unique. Instead, they blend into the background of everything she has already heard before, making your words forgettable the moment they are spoken. The problem with generic praise is not that it's wrong, but that it lacks identity. And without identity, there is no emotional connection being formed. It becomes noise rather than something that captures her attention or makes her pause and think. Focusing on what makes her different completely changes the dynamic because now you are no longer speaking to a general idea of a woman. You are speaking directly to who she is as an individual. This requires a different mindset, one where you are actually paying attention instead of just reacting. It could be the way she expresses her thoughts with clarity, the way she carries herself with quiet confidence, or even the subtle details in her behavior that reveal her personality. When you highlight something that sets her apart, you're showing her that you see more than just the surface, and that creates a sense of depth in the interaction. People are naturally drawn to those who recognize what makes them unique because it satisfies a deeper emotional need to feel understood rather than simply admired. There is also a psychological shift that happens when you move away from generic praise and focus on individuality. Instead of placing her on a pedestal in a broad, impersonal way, you are grounding your compliment in reality, which makes it feel more authentic and believable. Generic compliments often feel exaggerated or insincere because they lack context. But when you point out something specific about her, it becomes harder to dismiss. She can connect your words to something real about herself, which makes the compliment feel earned rather than given. This creates a stronger emotional response because it aligns with her own sense of identity instead of feeling like empty flattery. Another important aspect of focusing on what makes her different is that it naturally sets you apart as well. Most people don't take the time to observe and articulate what is unique about someone. So when you do, it immediately distinguishes you from others. It shows a level of awareness and presence that is rare, and that rarity itself becomes attractive. You're no longer just another voice giving predictable praise. You become someone who brings a different perspective, someone who notices what others miss. This not only increases her interest in what you say, but also in who you are, because your way of seeing her feels refreshing and unexpected. When you consistently avoid generic praise and instead focus on individuality, your compliments start to carry more weight and meaning. They become less about trying to impress and more about expressing genuine observation, which is far more compelling. Instead of creating a moment that fades quickly, you create an impression that lingers because it resonates with something deeper inside her, something that feels personal and real. Most men focus almost entirely on a woman's appearance when giving compliments because it feels like the most obvious and immediate thing to notice, but this approach often limits the depth of attraction they can create. Physical compliments may grab attention for a moment, but they rarely hold it because they don't engage anything beyond the surface. When a woman is used to being complimented for how she looks, those words begin to lose meaning over time, not because they are untrue, but because they are predictable. Predictability does not create emotional impact, and without emotional impact, attraction cannot deepen. When you shift your focus from her appearance to her mind, you begin to engage a completely different part of her identity, one that is often overlooked and therefore far more powerful to connect with. Appreciating her mind means recognizing how she thinks, how she processes ideas, how she communicates, and how she sees the world. It could be the clarity in her reasoning, the creativity in her perspective, or the way she expresses herself with confidence and intention. When you acknowledge these qualities, you're not just complimenting something she has, you're appreciating something she is. This distinction matters because what someone is will always feel more personal than what they simply appear to be. When a woman feels that you value her thoughts and her intelligence, it creates a sense of respect that goes beyond attraction, and that respect becomes the foundation for a deeper emotional connection. There is also a sense of rarity in appreciating a woman's mind because not everyone takes the time to do it. Most interactions stay at a surface level, where the focus remains on appearance or light conversation. So when you bring attention to her thinking, it immediately stands out. It shows that you are listening, that you are engaged, and that you are capable of seeing beyond what is immediately visible. This level of attention makes her feel understood in a way that is uncommon, and that feeling of being understood is one of the strongest drivers of attraction. It creates a quiet connection where she feels more comfortable expressing herself, knowing that what she says is being genuinely valued. Another important aspect of appreciating her mind is that it encourages her to invest more in the interaction. When you acknowledge her thoughts, she becomes more inclined to share them, which naturally deepens the conversation. When a woman feels that you appreciate her mind, she begins to associate you with a sense of intellectual and emotional stimulation, which naturally increases her interest and curiosity. Instead of feeling like just another person in her environment, you become someone who adds something different, something that goes beyond the obvious and into the realm of real connection. The right compliment goes far beyond surface level praise because its real power lies in creating a feeling of being truly seen and understood. Most interactions people have in daily life are shallow and automatic, where individuals are acknowledged only for what is immediately visible or socially expected. In that kind of environment, it could be the way she handles situations with quiet strength, the way she listens more than she speaks, or the way she expresses herself with a certain depth that others might miss. When you reflect these qualities back to her through a thoughtful compliment, you are showing that your attention is not passive, it is intentional. This level of awareness makes her feel acknowledged in a way that is rare because most people do not take the time to observe at that level. Instead of feeling like just another person in the room, she begins to feel like someone who has been individually recognized. And that shift in perception is where emotional attraction starts to build. Understanding adds another layer to this experience because it is not just about noticing something, but about interpreting it correctly. When your compliment aligns with how she sees herself or even reveals something she feels but has never fully articulated, it creates a powerful sense of validation. It makes her feel like you understand her without needing excessive explanation. And that kind of understanding is deeply appealing. People are naturally drawn to those who make them feel understood because it reduces the need to constantly explain or prove themselves. It creates a space where they can simply be without feeling judged or misunderstood. And that emotional comfort becomes strongly associated with the person who provides it. There is also a psychological depth to this kind of compliment because it touches on a fundamental human need for recognition. Everyone wants to feel like they matter, like there is something about them that is worth noticing and appreciating. When you give a compliment that genuinely reflects who she is, you are meeting that need in a way that feels authentic rather than forced. This authenticity is what makes the moment memorable because it doesn't feel like a technique or a line. It feels like a real expression of perception. The more real it feels, the more it resonates, and the more it stays with her as something meaningful rather than something easily forgotten. Creating a feeling of being seen and understood also changes the emotional tone of the interaction, making it more intimate without being intense. It introduces a sense of closeness that feels natural because it is built on observation and understanding rather than effort or exaggeration. Instead of trying to impress her, you are connecting with her, and that distinction is what makes the experience different. When a woman feels that you truly see her, not just for how she looks, but for who she is, It creates a quiet but powerful bond, one that naturally draws her attention and makes her more open to you without needing anything extra to be said. Confidence in delivery matters more than the words themselves because people don't just respond to what is being said, they respond to how it is being expressed. The same compliment can feel completely different depending on the tone, body language, and certainty behind it. When words are delivered with hesitation, nervousness, or a need for approval, they lose their strength no matter how well crafted they might be. On the other hand, even a simple compliment can feel powerful when it is delivered with calm confidence and self assurance. This is because confidence signals authenticity, and authenticity is what makes someone believe that you truly mean what you are saying, rather than just trying to impress or gain a reaction. When you speak with confidence, there is no sense of urgency or pressure in your words. You are not rushing to fill silence and you are not over explaining yourself. Instead, your delivery feels natural and composed, as if you are simply expressing an observation rather than seeking validation. This subtle shift changes the entire dynamic of the interaction because it removes the feeling that you are trying to win her approval. Instead, it positions you as someone who is comfortable in their own perspective, someone who doesn't need to convince anyone of anything. That kind of presence is naturally attractive because it creates a sense of stability and ease, which people are instinctively drawn to. Confidence also affects how your words are interpreted because it frames the meaning behind them. If a compliment is delivered with uncertainty, it can come across as insincere or even rehearsed, as if you are not fully convinced of what you are saying. This creates a disconnect where the words themselves may sound good, but the delivery makes them feel empty. In contrast, when you deliver a compliment with steady eye contact, relaxed body language, and a calm tone, it reinforces the message and makes it feel genuine. The alignment between your words and your delivery creates trust because it shows that you are not hiding behind your words, you are standing behind them. There is also an element of emotional control that comes with confident delivery. When you are confident, you are not overly reactive to her response, whether it is positive, neutral, or even slightly dismissive. You maintain the same level of composure regardless of the outcome, which shows that your sense of self is not dependent on how your words are received. This independence is powerful because it removes pressure from the interaction and allows it to flow more naturally. It also signals that you value your own perspective, which makes your compliments feel more like genuine expressions rather than attempts to gain approval. Another important aspect of confidence is restraint. Confident delivery does not mean saying more. It often means saying less, but with greater intention. Instead of overwhelming her with multiple compliments or trying to emphasize your point repeatedly, you allow your words to stand on their own. This creates space for the compliment to be felt and processed rather than diluted by excessive talking. The silence that follows a well delivered compliment can sometimes be more impactful than the words themselves because it gives the moment a sense of weight and presence. When confidence becomes part of your delivery, it transforms the way your words are received and remembered. It turns simple observations into meaningful statements, and it creates an emotional experience that goes beyond the literal meaning of the compliment. Instead of relying on perfect wording, you rely on your presence, your tone, and your ability to express yourself without hesitation, which ultimately makes everything you say feel more real and more compelling. Mystery and restraint are what give compliments their real weight because they prevent your words from becoming predictable or overly available. When everything is said too openly and too quickly, there is no space left for curiosity to exist. And without curiosity, attraction struggles to grow. Most people make the mistake of over explaining their compliments, trying to make sure the other person fully understands what they mean. But in doing so, they remove the very element that makes the interaction engaging. Mystery creates a gap between what is said and what is fully understood, and that gap is where interest begins to develop. When a woman has to think about what you meant or feels like there is more beneath your words that hasn't been fully revealed, it naturally draws her in and keeps her mentally engaged with you even after the moment has passed. Restraint works alongside mystery by controlling how much you reveal and when you reveal it. Instead of expressing every thought or piling on multiple compliments, you choose your moments carefully and keep your words minimal but intentional. This makes each compliment feel more significant because it is not surrounded by excess or unnecessary explanation. When you show that you don't feel the need to constantly validate or impress, it creates a sense of confidence and emotional control. It signals that your attention is not easily given, which increases its perceived value. People tend to appreciate things more when they feel they are not freely or endlessly available, and this principle applies strongly in communication. There is also a psychological effect that comes from not fully revealing everything at once. When you leave parts of your thoughts unspoken, it encourages her to fill in the gaps herself. She begins to interpret your words, replay the interaction in her mind, and wonder about the deeper meaning behind what you said. This kind of mental engagement is powerful because it keeps you present in her thoughts without requiring constant effort on your part. Instead of giving her a complete and closed statement, you give her something open ended, something that invites reflection rather than simply being accepted and forgotten. Mystery also changes the emotional tone of a compliment, making it feel less like a direct statement and more like an observation that carries depth. When you say just enough to spark curiosity but not enough to fully explain, it creates a subtle tension that makes the moment more memorable. This tension is not uncomfortable, it is intriguing because it leaves room for discovery. It makes the interaction feel layered, as if there is more to uncover over time rather than everything being immediately. This sense of unfolding keeps the dynamic interesting and prevents it from becoming flat or predictable. Restraint ensures that your compliments do not lose their impact through repetition or overuse. When compliments are given too frequently or too intensely, they begin to feel routine and their emotional effect weakens. By holding back and choosing when to speak, you maintain the strength of your words and preserve their ability to create a reaction. It is not about withholding for the sake of it, but about understanding that not every moment requires expression. Sometimes what you choose not to say is just as important as what you do say, because it maintains balance and keeps the interaction from becoming overwhelming. When mystery and restraint are combined, they transform compliments into something more than just words. They become experiences that linger because they are not fully resolved in the moment. Instead of giving immediate clarity, they create a sense of intrigue that continues to exist beyond the conversation, making your presence feel more impactful without needing constant reinforcement. At the end of the day, attraction is not built on saying more, it's built on saying things that actually matter. When your compliments are rare, specific, and emotionally aware, they stop feeling like empty words and start feeling like real observations. When you move away from generic praise and focus on what makes her different, you create a sense of individuality that naturally draws her in. When you appreciate her mind instead of just her appearance, you connect with a deeper part of who she is, something far more meaningful and lasting. And when your words make her feel seen and understood, you create an emotional experience that most people fail to give. But none of this works without the right delivery. Confidence is what gives your words life. And without it, even the best compliment falls flat. And when you combine that confidence with mystery and restraint, you create space for curiosity, for intrigue, and for her to think about you even after the moment is gone. It's not about trying to impress her with perfect lines. It's about understanding how to make her feel something real, something different from what she experiences with everyone else.